Chainsaw Man review time. Okay, I'll make this a quick one, because I'll be honest, I didn't even think I would be making this video. I mean, we all knew it was going to be good, right? Right? Oh, well, I guess not. But, like, after watching it, I do think I have some thoughts I want to lay bare. There's a lot I do want to talk about when it comes to adaptation and how the Fujimoto style can be shown. Especially when it comes to Chainsaw Man. Not only the TV show, but now this movie as well. Because if you look back... Sorry. At my look back review, I said something along the lines of, I actually did admire Studio Mappa's take on Chainsaw Man. I didn't dislike how it was done. And I think that, like, while I do stand by that, this right here, along with Look Back, these are my perfect adaptations, for Fujimoto's work at least. Disclaimer, I haven't seen all of 1726 yet. Yeah, I know, sorry, fake fan. See, I like the show because, to me, it felt more representative of Fujimoto's later style. Things like Goodbye Eri and Chainsaw Man Part 2, mainly, for its grounded and extremely weighted feel for everything. Chainsaw Man pacing used to be a huge meme back in the day, but I really never agreed with it because, in my opinion, the flow of a typical Fujimoto story tends to fluctuate between being slow, methodical, taking its time, to explosive, wacky insanity, and I think reducing Part 1 style to just the latter is a bit unfair to the subtleties in Fujimoto's writing. Now, you can argue that the TV show leaned too far on the former, however, this at the time felt like a deliberate attempt to tie it more to Fujimoto's later work. The director Ryu Nakayama's more methodical approach is something to be admired, since it's a style that Fujimoto's even fond of. But looking back, sorry, I see why some people were underwhelmed with it, especially now after seeing the alternative. You know, I made a comment once to my brother who had just finished the TV show, where he said something like, I liked it, but I just wish it wasn't trying so hard to be a live-action movie. And I believe I responded with, I think it's cool to be inspired by live action. However, I'd like for it to, at least for Part 1, be more schlocky B-movie, early Sam Raimi / Coen Brothers vibe, and less, like, later Coen Brothers vibe. Oh, I do see why the temptation is there.
Yes, sir. I got it under control.
Now, okay, I know everyone talking about this movie is going to be praising the action, and they absolutely should because, spoiler, it's fantastic. However, what gets me with this adaptation is the sheer precision and creativity coming from the directing, to the color palettes chosen, to the camera movements, to the various uses of choice sound effects. What? Everything here feels so frantic, yet wonderfully precise and extremely realized. Again, that kind of crazy we'll throw anything at the wall to see what sticks vibe, again, similar to Sam Raimi, was all over this, and I fucking loved it. Sprinkling in some more fun and creative directing, influenced by grimier inspirations such as older, schlocky B-movies akin to the likes of Peter Jackson's old stuff, and things like Italian giallo horror, while also at the same time not totally abandoning its roots as an anime, showing off the fights in a much flashier and over-the-top manner than some of the more subtle kind of movie influences. Yeah, I would say this is perfect in that regard. Hell, I would even argue that at least the first half of this movie in certain parts feels directly inspired by the same movies that the TV show were inspired by. Honestly, Season 2 doesn't even have to keep up with this quality of the fluidity of the animation, though I do hope we get something comparable. I just need it to continue to do interesting directing choices like this. There was a scene that felt like a better adaptation of the Uzumaki weighted rotoscope manga feel than most of the actual Uzumaki adaptation. Haha, still hurts. So yeah, suffice it to say, on a directional level, I was extremely happy with this adaptation. However, there are a couple things that I do want to touch on. I mentioned earlier the fight scenes, and while I do think the majority of them are great, they can genuinely get a little overstimulating at times. It kind of starts to veer into that Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 territory, or like anything I see from modern One Piece, where there's just so much going on that it's hard to discern what's even happening at points. For what it's worth, I can see this as completely intentional, because I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel this about Fujimoto's own choreography for his fight scenes in his own manga. To me, this dude is an extremely laser-focused creator, where he knows the exact beginning and end point that he wants to arrive at, but that does mean at times some of the finer details around the middle get a bit jumbled. This effect is seen a lot in his writing, but also in his fight scenes too. Like, look at this. I can't even tell what's happening here. So, honestly, in a roundabout way, this sort of messy, everything happening at once sort of style actually kind of sort of fits. And look, even if it's not intended that way, it's not the worst thing. I mean, it's a very good problem to have, where your animators are just teeming with this frantic excitement that shows itself in these crazy, wild fight scenes. And some of that creativity that I talked about for the general direction outside of those scenes shows up here as well. And while we're nitpicking, I just want to say while the pool scene was essentially perfect, there was one thing that bothered me about it. Look movie, you're R-rated. When it comes to nudity, it's alright to show a little. When that scene was done in the manga, it made sense to censor it the way they did, seeing as how it was shown in Jump, which, if I understand correctly, is a bit stingier when it comes to nudity and stuff like that. However, you don't have to stay 100% true to how it looked in the manga, especially with the higher frequency in which you're staying with these scenes when it comes to animation. There's a difference between looking at a few panels of a weirdly censored woman to a few minutes when it's adapted directly into an animated scene. This is where that sort of slavish devotion to staying true to the source material can kind of backfire, because seeing a clearly naked figure without any attempts of at least clever censorship or non-direct lighting, and instead going the route of, they just have no nipples, is distracting.
Especially when there's more creative ways you could have gone about it, with either harsher lighting or maybe even going more abstract with the art style in this sequence. Or just show it. I mean, it is an R-rated movie after all, I don't see why not.
I mean, regardless, the scene still carried its emotional and thematic weight beautifully, so it's hard to get that upset over it in the end, even if it is a little distracting. I mean, it's not like I'm looking for titillation, in fact, quite the opposite. It's a deeply poignant moment that says a lot about the parallels between these two. It's a moment of vulnerability that blurs the lines between what emotions are real and what isn't, and carries this dreamlike visage of a reality that's just waiting to be shattered, even if you're not quite sure what it is that's going to do that yet. Though if you look closely at the symbolism, you can sort of see it coming. But, that's fine. The last thing I want to mention is the story. I wanted to save this for last since I don't really have a lot to say. I'm not sure if I have any nuanced, unbiased view of Chainsaw Man stories. I don't know if I have any new opinions on it except for, it's good! But one thing I will note about this particular arc is that I was kind of taken aback by how neatly it fits into a movie format. I haven't watched it, but a criticism I keep hearing about the Demon Slayer movie is that it's just a series of flashbacks. And while I'm not going to comment on that too much because I can see how that can be done well, as an outsider looking in, to me it kind of reads as, we're just adapting a part of the story that very well could have just been a few episodes in the anime. That being said, goddamn, the Reze arc fits almost too well into a movie format. Like, it feels like it was always meant to be looked at this way. There are clear arcs for nearly every character. I mean, while I was reading, I didn't even pick up on how tightly written Angel is in this arc, how all his major character growth basically happens in these few chapters alone. I love how the motifs of the city mouse and the country mouse get thoroughly explored and paid off. A theme that, all relevant to this arc in particular, also permeates the entire story and Denji's character as a whole. I love how Makima sort of starts and bookends this arc, only showing up in the beginning and in the ending. And lastly, Reze and the Bomb Girl just feel like they were made for the big screen, with how theatrical they are, and how they represent not only the themes, but every part of Chainsaw Man that I love, from the chaotic and goofy nature of it all to the quiet and more somber aspects of the story. Everything that I love about Chainsaw Man and Fujimoto's writing style is perfectly encapsulated in this wild, messy, fun, and yet heartbreaking arc. Seriously, it fits so well into a movie, I would even recommend it to people who haven't even seen the anime. Hell, I'd recommend it to people who don't really like anime or even know what Chainsaw Man is. There's just so much to chew on that even people who don't typically enjoy anime can get a lot from this. Anyways, 10 out of 10. Loved it.
That shit speak to me on an emotional level. Jesus.
Good job, Tatsuya Yoshihara. I look forward to seeing your season 3. You did great. Good job. 10 out of 10.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. I know it took a while to come out, but, you know, it's the creative process. I know, like, basically everyone and their mom has already seen this movie, but I felt like I had a unique perspective on it compared to some of the reviews I've been seeing, so, you know, especially as a lifelong Fujimoto fan. By lifelong, I mean since, like, 2017 or something. Still, that's a while. It's a pretty long time. Anyways, thanks for watching again. Hopefully the next one is out sooner, but yeah, you know, I make no promises on that shit. Sorry. Leave a like if you liked. If not, then, you know, you don't gotta. I'm not your mom. I mean, I could be your mom. You don't know. Your mom could be making these stupid anime videos. You never know. Be right under your nose. That shit's fucking scary. I'm rambling. I'm very tired. Yeah. Yeah, good one. Fuck this shit. Finally done. Hey, what'd you think of the Chainsaw Man movie, Dante? Dante?
Darkness, my old friend.
And yeah, massive. I'm a massive fan. You know, every game was like radically different. And so it's one of those, like,
Because
Don't fuck!